Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you very much for joining us. If you're listening to the show for the first time, you find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And we are here to build up to Crystal Palace to come on, of course, Saturday. It feels like that we're just counting down the games, the minutes of just what this club is doing to us right now. We're joined by three great returning guests back on Last Word on Spurs. One man who I talk to daily about this club and what it does to us. We've got the wonderful Blues' very, very own. Last Word on Spurs is very, very own. Antony Costa's back on Last Word on Spurs. Ant, how are you, bud?
How are you, Rick? Different setting tonight, mate. I'm in my garage. I've been demoted to my garage because my girls said, Daddy, you talk too much on the computer. So I'm in my garage. I've got my Spurs shirts at the back. Matty, take note, my brother. Take note, son. Yeah, I'm all good, mate. Great to be on with Matt. Great to see Anthoulla as well. It's been a long, long time. She used to know my brother really, really well. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into all things Tottenham. And, yeah, can't wait. Let's go.
It's very rare now people actually say they're looking forward to getting into the shows, given what we've had to review over the last 3-4 months.
Do you want the truth? Actually, I can't stand that. I'm so upset about our club. Don't want to talk about our club. Let's talk about something different.
Let's just fill the next hour with something else other than his bloody football club. Jordan and tonight back on Last Word on Spurs. Been a while for her. She reminded me the last time she was on was upon Conte's appointment, and she was very sceptical of it, of course, at the time. And who knew what was going to come? We've got the wonderful Anthoulla from the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. Join us, Anthoulla. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for having me back. It's
Pleasure.
Great to see everyone. And yeah, great to catch up with Antony. I haven't seen him for a long, long time. So yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. We've got a lot to look forward to and get into on this show. And make up our panel, certainly, last but certainly not least, we've got the wonderful Matty Hayes back on Last Word on Spurs. Oh, Matt, how are you, bud? Lovely to have you back on with us. How are you?
It's an absolute pleasure to be on with the three of you and talking Spurs. The subject matter might be a little different, but yeah, look, it's always fun to dive into the madness and try and make sense of it all.
Absolutely, Matt. I'm going to make you feel better. It's not long, pal, till we've got the summer transfer shows coming our way. So don't worry, it's all going to kick off. It's all going to be really, really exciting. It most certainly will be. Just a reminder for those that, of course, don't know already that we are absolutely delighted to be sponsored by the Beavertown Corner Pin. That, of course, is the Beavertown bang opposite our South stand. You can grab a pint before or after the games at the Beavertown Corner Pin, or even drink the world's wonderful beer on earth. Make sure you go and check all Beavertown-related information by going to beavertownbrewery.co.uk. Right, now housekeeping is out the way. I have to painfully, take you back to Sunday. We're not going to do a full recap, but maybe the emotions and the feelings on Spurs having shipped 5 goals in 21 minutes against Newcastle, to then follow up a week later and find themselves 3 down after 15 minutes against Liverpool. I mean, it's just been a nightmare run of results. And whilst we've seen from Tottenham 2 comebacks within a week under Mason, the last one, of course, not ending the way we wanted, just give me your feelings about how you felt on the back of Anfield and if there was any positives whatsoever you could have taken from that game.
The only positives I can take from that game, Ricky, is that Liverpool didn't go all out in the second half and gave us a little bit of hope. I was watching it with our pal Ricky Norwood. It was his surprise birthday, so I was like the decoy. I was watching the game with him, and I don't remember them scoring the 4th goal. That's how much I don't remember, because I was celebrating our Richarlison's goal. And then I've looked up and it's 4-3, and I'm like, how the hell did that happen? Watched it back, obviously, on the replay, and it was just like, why can't we just see games out? Why? You know, to score 3 goals at Anfield is one thing, but to score 3 goals at Anfield and come away with nothing, it's not good. It's really not good. And I, for one, can't wait for this season to end. It's been a very, very up and down season. And I'm in the mindset now of just play the games now and just see what happens. And just go and have, hopefully the boys go and have fun, if that's a word I can use. I think the Newcastle game really took us back. I mean, you know, losing 6-1, because the Man United game and the Liverpool game, they've all scored within like 10, 15 minutes of a match. So I think that is like that's the opposition's game set, isn't it? Game management. Go at them because they will make a mistake, and that's what Spurs do. They make mistakes left, right, and centre, and it's upsetting to see.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they do indeed. I mean, I say when you look back at the game on Sunday, and come around to you, we're trailing 15 minutes 3-0 down. It looked like it was going to be an incredible mountain to fight back. And to be fair, Spurs did that by bringing it to 3-3. Only, of course, Diego Jota to break our hearts in stoppage times. I mean, look, we know things are never straightforward in the world of Tottenham Hotspur. And I think that game did showcase the very worst, sometimes actually the very best of Tottenham and the ugly. I mean, how do you sum up that result against Anfield? And maybe I'll ask a similar question to you. Bearing in mind it is, 5 wins at Anfield in 112 years, the manner in which Spurs did come back in that second half, does that give you any optimism between now and the remaining 4 games of the season?
It's always like, oh no, here we go again, thinking back to Newcastle. And I was like, why do we always start games slow? Why do we always let people put pressure on us and attack us and then get early goals? And why are we always on the back foot every bloody game? And then, like Anthony said, to be fair, Liverpool backed off a bit, which allowed us to play. And then we started to play more attacking football. And actually, I haven't seen that attacking football for a little while. So I was thinking, is that because of the backlash from Newcastle? Is it because Ryan Mason has now stepped in? Not quite sure, but it was quite nice to see us play a bit more attacking football. But then it was because Liverpool had backed off. So it was brilliant. I thought credit to the boys to come back and get back to equalising, to be fair to them, especially at Anfield. It's a tough place to go and a tough place to score goals. But then we just made another error and all that hard work went out the window, basically. And that sums up Spurs, right? If only we could defend. We've never had a problem attacking. We can attack. That's fine. But if only we could defend, eh?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, Matt, coming over to you, I think that's one thing that has come out of the last, 6-7 days with Mason being appointed, that it's reminded us that Spurs actually do have some really good attacking players. And whilst, of course, there's been a lot of questionable defending from the whole, really, of the defensive backline that have started the last couple of games, I think there's been a reminder in there over these last couple of games that Spurs, when they actually approach games on more of the front foot, can score goals, can be exciting. So again, I'm trying to find some positives in what's been a really difficult last, 8-9 days for Tottenham. They've taken just a couple, I've taken, again, a point against Manchester United and nothing against Liverpool. Tell me how you feel in terms of the mood at the moment around the camp going into these final 4 games of the season.
I think these last 4 games, I mean, our season's over. We're not going to get Champions League, anything from Europa League to Conference League to nothing. It doesn't make a difference really for a club the size of Spurs that is used to Champions League football. So for me, I think I'm the same as you, Ricky. I just want to see some positives. Obviously the starts against Newcastle United and Liverpool were absolutely diabolical. It should never happen, but the way we fought back in the last couple of games and the way we pressed, especially in that game against Liverpool, we played against their weaknesses. We know they can be sloppy in possession at the back. They were complacent, as you would be, I suppose, when you're 3-0 up after 15 minutes, and we were able to take advantage of that. And in the second half, even though we did sit back for a lot of it, we looked very solid. And again, a subpar Liverpool team, but they didn't really have a chance outside of the 3 goals they scored, maybe a half chance for Gakpo in the first half. But, if we had been told after that game against Newcastle that we'd go to Liverpool and from minute 15 to minute 90, we'd look more likely to score, I think we all would have taken that. But it's those starts of the games and it's individual errors. I think Dyer and Romero were blamed for that 3rd goal, especially just poor marking for the first couple of goals, starting slowly. It's the same issues we're having time and time and time again. But those are issues that can be addressed by whatever manager comes in next. It's not like we're looking at what Ryan Mason is doing now and thinking, well, that's what we have for the foreseeable future. We're looking at a defence and a goalkeeper that is going to be changed, and then the quality that we actually have going forward up the pitch, which gives us a little bit of hope and a bit of platform that we can push on from. So I'm not by any stretch of the imagination happy with what's happened in the last week. I'm not here going to say, oh yeah, we're definitely getting top 4 next season, but it's just nice to see us scoring a couple of goals again. And even if it's just little glimpses in games, playing good football and playing the way that we want to play. But my God, there is still so much work to do and so much recruitment that needs to be done in the summer.
Can I ask a question?
Go on.
Ricky, can I ask a question to the panel? Just to get obviously, Rick, please answer the question as well. Will you miss European football next season if we don't get it?
That's exactly what I was going to come on to next.
Because you're my brother from another mother.
What is the thing? I mean, You'll miss the away days, Ant.
Yeah,
You know what's
I'll miss the
interesting?
European away days.
Let me ask you, Anthony. I mean, where we are right now with Tottenham in terms of that European battle, obviously, of course, Spurs now find themselves 1 place, 2 points behind Liverpool on the table after that killer blow at Anfield. It leaves Spurs 9 points off, of course, the top 4, which before that game looked incredibly difficult. Now it's merely impossible. Spurs may find themselves obviously now in a fight with Aston Villa, Brighton, who have 3 games in hand for 1 Europa League place and 1 Europa Conference League place. How do you feel for you, Anthony, at the moment? What do you feel is the priority? Do you feel Europe is absolutely essential for a club like Tottenham to be playing in it?
If you've asked me this last year, Rick, yes, Europe is essential, but not this season. Not the way we've been playing, not the way we've fallen off a cliff. I think it's essential now to get a manager in ASAP to assess the squad that the manager needs, who he wants, who he doesn't want, who he wants to sell. Don't forget, we've got all these players coming back on loan. Then you're back to square one again, sussing out who he wants. He might want Lo Celso. He might want giving Ndombele a chance. We don't know. And the thing is, by that time, we could be mid-June, end of June, July, and the season starts a couple of weeks later. So for me, in answer to your question, I don't think European football is what we need at the moment for next season. I'm full of what you think.
Phil, what do you think for you on that?
I think the money for the club is in the Champions League. So if we're not going to finish in the Champions League spot, which we're not, I think we should finish outside of Europe and actually spend time sorting the stuff out, the shit out, basically, that's happening on the pitch. Sort ourselves out, work out who we want to be, what style of football we want to play, get a manager in, back the manager, and find some footing again and find some consistency. So for me, I think for the good of the club, we shouldn't finish in a Europe spot. And also those European games, especially in the Conference League, they're a bitch. You're going across to Eastern Europe. It's really far, really time consuming, really knackering for the players. It's not like the Champions League, and you'll be playing Thursday, Sunday football. That's going to kill us, absolutely kill us next season. So I don't think you'd want that.
You know what, Matt, come around to you. I have to argue this point that, many, of course, feel Spurs have to be in the Champions League. And I make this point and joke with Ant all the time that, Spurs being in the Champions League, it's all very well being in there, but you don't generally ever feel Spurs ever got a chance to win it. So I look at the Europa League, and again, for a fear of offending some people here, is the Europa League not more our level? I mean, that's a winnable competition. When you look at, of course, next season to come, Liverpool are going to strengthen. Chelsea are going to strengthen under, of course, who we know who's going to be going there. You then look at Arsenal. They're also going to invest as well. Newcastle are going to come again. So that Europa League does give Tottenham an opportunity to get into the Champions League through that avenue. I just wonder whether, I understand some are saying, look, we've got to sort in the most politest way the crap out in terms of both on and off the pitch. And therefore maybe a season out of Europe would do Spurs, the world of good. But I am just wondering, Spurs have got quite a big squad. It's a number of players that are going to need game time. And I just, the more I think about it, I think Europa League I'd be more open to, purely on the basis that it's a competition that Spurs can qualify in the Champions League through. And we've got to keep the squad happy. And I'm not sure if you can keep the size of the squad Spurs have got happy when you're only going to be playing 1 game a week. What do you think, Matt, for you on that question?
I'm going to run the risk of insulting even more people than when you said Europa League is our level. I don't think we can win any of them. To be perfectly honest, we're never going to win the Champions League. Let's be perfectly honest. To state right now, we're not going to win it. In the Europa League, every year I've seen us in it, I've thought, do you know what? Maybe we could, and then we go to Ghent and we lose, or we go to, who was it? Dinamo Zagreb.
Is that down, Matt, to the players not taking it seriously? I mean, I think if we've got a manager in there, like for example, if we get a manager in that is a competent manager that has been throughout European competition, there's names, of course, of Nagelsmann being linked, Ruben Amorim being linked now. I just wonder if you have a manager that actually has got the mindset of taking the competition seriously. Because I think the issue you may have had is under Conte and Mourinho, that maybe Europa League was a little bit, above them. But even Mourinho, you saw how much he loved the fact of winning even the Conference League. I think it's the group of players you've got to convince more than the managers. I mean, do you generally feel that Spurs wouldn't approach it with a winning mentality next season if they were in Europe?
Yeah, no, I really do. And look, I think winning the Europa League, winning any trophy, when you've been on a 15-year drought at this stage, winning any trophy is absolutely fantastic. But honestly, the way I'm looking at these competitions, because I don't feel we will win any of them, is what can we get out of them if we don't win it? Because if you end up in the Europa League and you lose the final, that's the worst case scenario. Because you've played Thursday night football the whole way throughout the season. You're playing Sunday, that game that nobody watches. That's just those disgusting games. You're going to lose points in the league as a result of the European hangover from Thursday night. So I think whoever the manager is with this group of players, we're not going to win any of them, because there's a mentality within this dressing room and within this squad that no matter how many winners you put in there, this toxic mentality in the squad just seems to take over. I mean, remember that season when we brought in Jose, obviously a serial winner. We brought in Joe Hart, who had won almost every trophy there was to win at Manchester City. We brought in Højbjerg that summer, who won a couple of things at Bayern Munich. There was a bit of a winning mentality going in there. And before you know it, they're all like Eric Dyer, and they're making mistakes every other weekend, and we're just not winning anything. For me, what I'm looking from these things is what we can get out of it if we don't win. If we get Champions League and we don't win it, we get a damn lot of money, which I know people can have their say about whether or not the board will invest that in the squad. But I think we've seen in the last couple of years there is investment going in there. Maybe not as much as we want or in the right places, but it's going in. You have players being attracted to the club when you're in the Champions League. Great games of football, which I have to say that we all love those. If you don't win the Europa League, you get nothing. If you don't win the Conference League, you get nothing. For me, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I hope Spurs lose the rest of their games this season and we finish 8th. I want us to win every game this season, but I also don't really want us in the Europa or Conference League. So it's a bit of a tough one there. But I think our priority needs to be getting back to absolute basics and just putting together a structure on the pitch and off the pitch that we can use to propel ourselves back to where we want to be. I personally don't want to settle for Europa League or Conference League. I want to aim big, because I think that is what Tottenham, with the fan base that we have and with some players that are in there, that is what we can achieve. And if it takes a year or two of no Europe to kind of reset and get to that level, I'm okay with that. But for me, the only good thing that we can get out of Europa or Conference League is just play the kids, give them some experience. Aside from that, there's just no benefit there for me.
It'll be interesting to see how they approach these next 3-4 games. Now, of course, Spurs haven't got, you'd say, easy games on paper, of course. Palace, they're rejuvenating the Roy Hodgson. We're going to come on to it in a little bit. You look at the fact Aston Villa now have been flying under Unai Emery. Of course, they suffered a defeat against Manchester United, but apart from that, their home has been really impeccable under him. And such is Villa's form that they now find themselves level on points with us. Of course, at the moment, that obviously can be subject to change. And then even Brentford at home, I don't think you can say that's a 3 points the way Brentford have been really a really difficult game. And then now, last game of the season, we know Leeds United away with Big Sam in there. I mean, I think Big Sam Allardyce will be looking at that Tottenham game, targeting all 3 points. We look at what Leeds have got to come. Definitely for them, that game will be crucial in terms of where they'll be staying up. And I do want to ask you about Harry Kane. I know, again, his future is much on the height of speculation at the moment. And I just wonder, on the back of that interview you gave to Sky after the game against Liverpool, I think he left a little bit more open about his future than what he could have done. He almost said, I live in the moment and I give 120% whilst I'm here, almost alluding to the fact that, I don't know, whether he's becoming tired and irritated by those that are around him, almost failing to help him get to where he wants to be. But I will caveat that and say, during his time at Spurs, Kane has had ample opportunities in semi-finals and finals to get top over the line and hasn't, unfortunately, done so. Where do you think the land lies of Harry Kane going into the summer? And do you think Spurs would generally consider bids for him?
I think, I don't know about teams in the UK, in England. I think teams abroad might come in just to test Levy out and see what happens. I personally, this is my personal opinion, again, everyone's entitled to their opinion, I think he will stay next season, whoever the manager is, try and win something. I know it's laughable, but try and win something and then go, I'm done. I'm off ski. He's got a year left, as we always know. It ends next season. And I think that he's going to give his all for one last time, one last hurrah, stay, and then hopefully build a team around him. But he has, it's hard because it all depends on the manager and who that manager is. And if he's a type of manager that will put his arm around his shoulder and say, listen, I'm building the team around you, you're my number one, or a manager that probably doesn't want him. Could you imagine a manager coming and going, no, we need to sell you now, Harry. You need to go. You've got to respect what the manager wants. Whatever the manager wants, we have to back that person. I personally don't think he'll leave.
You don't think he'll go to Man United?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's what he's going to do.
What's that?
I think it's a possibility that he could go to Man United, especially if they finish in the top 4.
This
It is
summer,
a
Anthony.
possibility, but I just can't see Levy going. Oh yeah, there you go. Go on.
But
I think
also,
he's outpricing.
is Levy going to risk him going on a free when he could make some money on him?
This is it. And again, we're coming back to that. He wants to make money, and rightly so. You know, we need to sell up. If you want to sell the best asset of our club, then yeah, absolutely. But I just think my gut is telling me that he will stay and try and leave, but hopefully by winning something. I really do.
He'll stay in the Premier League because he wants to make that record. He wants to break that record, right? So he'll stay in the Premier League, and I think he could potentially go to Man United. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Tom, that's
fair dues. That's fair dues.
Yeah, I mean, Tom on the screen says there, look how quick Man United and Newcastle have turned things around. It can happen, and it can turn around with a good coach. And we do have a huge squad. Again, I just wondered, Matt, to come over to you with Kane. You know, a really great article this week from Dan Kilpatrick in The Standard. He's alluding to the fact that Spurs are likely to plan emotion and legacy in terms of the contract talks for Kane, almost saying that stay here and you'll get a statue and immortality, and maybe a trophy, depending on who the next manager comes in and how Spurs are going to end up in those cup competitions next season. I just, again, wonder whether that's enough for Kane now, whether he looks around him and thinks, I deserve a lot better than what I'm being served. But again, I will reference that point that I said at the start of this topic, that Kane has been part of a number of teams that have got to semi-finals and finals, and has also been part of the reason why we haven't got over the line. So I just wonder for you, Matt, where you stand on the Harry Kane debate, and whether you feel he will give the rest of his career to Tottenham, or ultimately the trophies, what he ultimately craves, are going to lead him down a different path.
I think he's gone this summer, to be perfectly honest. I do think it's a lose-lose situation here for Daniel Levy and for the board. I mean, they make countless mistakes, but in this one, you sell Harry Kane now for 100 million, and Tottenham fans are annoyed that you sell him, or you let him go on a free next season, and Tottenham fans are annoyed that you let him go on a free. You know, I do think he's stuck between a rock and a hard place at this point. And to be quite frank, I don't think he has anything on his side to bargain with Harry Kane here. You know, I'd hope to God that they're using legacy and emotion to try and tempt him to stay, because if they were going to say to Harry Kane, we're going to build a squad around you and we're going to win a trophy, and Harry Kane believes that again, he's an idiot, to be quite honest, because how many times has that been said to Harry Kane by this board? How many times have we said, you know, we'll do this and this and this, and we'll build this team, and it just hasn't happened. I would love nothing more than, and I know every Tottenham fan here is the same, would love nothing more than for Harry Kane to stay at Spurs for his career, to break the record that Alan Shearer has in place, what I think he's going to do if he stays in the Premier League, and even just to lift one trophy for Spurs. But at this point, it's just not feasible. You know, the owners have, and the board have said have sold him too many false promises at this point. And if I were him, I'd want to leave. So I don't know why I can sit here and say, well, he shouldn't want to leave. And I agree with Anthoulla that the most likely thing here is that he goes to Manchester United, because he's not going to go to City now. They've got Haaland. Liverpool don't have the money. I can't see him making that move across to Chelsea. He's obviously not going to join Arsenal. United back in the top 4, back in the Champions League, already won a trophy this season in another final, and looking on the up with Eric Ten Hag, building a solid squad. I think for Kane, it would be a clever move to go to Manchester United. And it hurts me to say that. I can't see him leaving England, because that record is well within his grasp for if he has another 3 seasons there. The only thing that I can see keeping him at Spurs this year is that he won't want to go abroad, and Daniel Levy will do everything he can to not sell him to another Premier League team. So we could just be at an impasse here, but I think we are watching the last few games of Harry Kane in a Spurs jersey, and it really hurts. But, you know, I don't think any Spurs fan can hold any bit of a grudge towards him, or any bad feelings, maybe excluding the couple of finals where you could argue he should have given more, but there were 13, 14 other players that wore a jersey that day that should have given a little bit more as well. And if it wasn't for Harry Kane, they wouldn't have had that opportunity. So, yeah, it's a very tough situation, but I personally think he'd be leading the line at Old Trafford.
What manager keeps him?
I mean, I think Poch would have done.
Mm-hmm. I think he's the only one.
I mean, again, a question for you here. You know, do you worry even Poch? I think Kane would look at the situation with Chelsea. And again, this is why, with me a little bit with Pochettino, we've not really touched on it too much, but I am a little bit surprised that I know obviously Poch would have loved to have had even a contact from Tottenham. It hasn't happened. And the fact that he's going to Chelsea, the man wants to work. I get that. But I find still that very uncomfortable with the Chelsea move. And I think, again, it's almost... difficult for him now to ever foresee a way back to Tottenham after making that move to Chelsea, which sounds absolutely mad given the fact how Spurs have taken so many Chelsea managers over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. But again, I just wonder, do you think Kane, could he ever consider a move to Chelsea? That would surely tarnish his legacy at Tottenham, wouldn't it?
But as you said, you've got to respect the man. He wants to go and win things, and if he
can win things, but does he have? Is he? I mean, a club like
no,
Chelsea.
No. I'm not saying go to Chelsea. I'm just saying if you want to, we want to talk about trophies and winning things. Is he going to win more at Tottenham? Is he going to win more at Chelsea? For example, I'd hate to see him in a Chelsea shirt. Trust me, like we all would. But what can you do? You can't. Will it ruin his legacy? Not really. I think it will be a sour taste in our mouths for sure, but not for me, man. Not for. Listen, he served the club very well. What can you do? Do you know what I mean? Like he wants to win things, but he might not win if he goes to Chelsea. They might not win anything. Like they haven't got Europe next season. They haven't won anything this season. Yeah. So, if it weren't for Tuchel at the beginning of the season, they'll be fighting relegation now. If we were talking,
they would be. They would be.
So, luckily, things like in the last sort of 8-9 years, we haven't been in that position. Do you know what I mean? So I think Kane. I don't know if he does go. I can only see him going abroad. But again, I think he's going to stay another year just to see who the new manager is, see their ideas. Listen, what if he stays another year, loves it back, gets the love back, and then signs an extension? We're all winners then, aren't we?
We would be. I mean, Anthony, you seem very much unconvinced by.
I think he's been patient enough, Anthony. He's been patient enough with us.
100%,
hasn't he? I want him to stay. I think I said it on Sky Sports. I think that they should be doing everything they possibly can to make him stay. But the reality is he wants to win things as well. He's ambitious, right? So is our club going to show that they have a strategy in place and that they're going to do that for him and build a team around him and get a manager in that's going to do that? That's the question here. If they're not going to do that, Kane's going to want to be out the door. And then you're being forced, Levy's being forced either, okay, Kane wants to force a move. Am I going to sell him now or let him go on a free next year? Because that will be the next question. What do you think Levy's going to do? I don't know. I mean, the best thing to do for us is to keep him and let him go on a free the following year. But can he afford to lose the money that he would get for him?
Yeah. My only gripe, Anthoulla, if coming back, is the fact that we've never had, I hate saying that word, I've said it many times, I hate saying this word, a backup for Kane. We should have had someone a season ago, 2 seasons ago.
We never replaced Kane. We've never replaced Berbatov. Kane just fell into our hands. He just came from our youth. We've never actually replaced Berbatov since he left.
That's a great shout.
And our recruitment strategy is rubbish. Yes, we've put in loads of money, actually. We spent a lot of money in transfer windows. But if you look at that list, I mean, my 2 colleagues from the Trust were on Last Word on Spurs not that long ago, and Henry listed out our transfer windows year on year. And some of those names, it's bloody shocking. Our recruitment strategy is awful, and that's something that needs to be fixed.
It's so bad, but exactly. But I think I've always said this: we should always have had a second striker ready for if and when he leaves, if he was to leave. Now, as I said, if he leaves in the summer, for example, we're going to be on your show going, oh, who are we going to get now? Who should we get? Oh, he scored 30 goals for PSV. He scored 20 goals for AC Milan. Then they've got to come, settle in, and at Tottenham, you don't get time anymore. And I, for one, am one of them impatient fans. And I shouldn't be, but I am. I'm impatient. I can't be any different. If they don't hit the ground running, you're like, waste of money. I'm up in arms. I'm throwing my arms in the air. I can't be bothered. I've just broke my charger. But yeah, that's how I am. So in the sense, the recruitment over the years has not been great.
Agreed.
I just wonder, Matt. I mean, do you feel there's any way you can tug on the heartstrings of Kane in relation to, selling him the opportunity of having a stand named after him, a statue, even though we hear that Spurs don't do statues really of players? Is that going to mean anything really for Harry Kane? Or do you think the guy, from what I gauge, whenever he does an interview, he's all about winning? That's the most important thing to me, is winning and legacy with Harry Kane.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one. And I think the vast majority of footballers, You know, if they were in this position, you'd say, well, they go away and win trophies. But every now and then you get these players who are just so loyal, even if it is at their own expense. And I'm hoping beyond hope that Harry Kane is one of those players. But I think, especially in the modern era, when any fan outside of Tottenham, they say, yeah, Kane's great, but he hasn't won anything. I think that as much as Kane can say he doesn't care about that will matter to him. You know, he won't want to be remembered as one of the greatest strikers of all time, but he didn't even win a Community Shield. You know, like he will be remembered as the guy who won the Audi Cup. You know, in the eyes of, and that's completely wrong. It's just in the eyes of the modern football fan who, you know, probably doesn't even watch football and just tweets something stupid at the end of the game. And I do think that will matter to Harry Kane. And I had this debate with a few people at work recently, and they were saying that they think Harry Kane will go to Bayern Munich and take a few Bundesliga titles. And I said, well, for me, I think the record of the Premier League goal scorer is the most important thing to him. But there's realistic opportunity there for him to still break that record and still win trophies, and that's Manchester United. And I don't think it's in Tottenham's hands at the moment. I think it's just purely down to Harry Kane. No matter what we say, if it's a statue, if it's a stand in the stadium, no matter what it is, that legacy that he could have as this one club man, the greatest player to ever don the Tottenham jersey, which he arguably already is, I don't think that's going to be enough for him. And it's just what Man United can offer him, and just in his heart of hearts, what he actually wants, and no one will know that other than him.
Yeah, and you say like Richarlison. I know. Sorry, Rick. A lot of comments, and they're right. Richarlison plays up front for Brazil, but he hasn't had that many opportunities this season because of how good Kane is. All right, he's been injured a few times, so when he has had the chance, he has taken them by all means. All right, he hasn't scored a lot, but he looks like he knows. You know, he looks like he's enthusiastic. He looks like a good player. We all know from his Everton days, but is he going to be enough if Kane leaves? Would you be confident going, Richarlison's our number one? But you know, would he? I don't know.
This is the question, isn't it, really? I mean, has Richarlison got the ability to step into the mould of that? Look, he got obviously a big goal for himself at the weekend against Liverpool at Anfield, but that's his first Premier League goal of the season. I mean, that is the biggest worry. You know, the goal tally hasn't quite been there for him. And there's been a number of factors for that. You can blame, again, the manager, the style, the setup, but ultimately the return hasn't been anywhere near what you thought the investment was going to be for him. Right. I do want to turn the attention to the next manager, or the lack of the next manager at the moment, Anthoulla, coming around to you, because there is massive pressure now on Daniel Levy to get the next one right. I mean, again, many will feel like he's had about 15, 20 lives to get the next one right. And we always keep saying, yeah, but he's only got one last chance. We've been saying that for the last 6 appointments, I think, with Daniel and the managerial situation. You know, interesting, we did see an interview this week on TalkSport from Spurs' former head of elite identification and development, David Webb, who was asked if Daniel Levy had ever said no to certain signings. He said, yes, there were cases where I was at Spurs. We had players in the building that we should have potentially signed that would have helped Pochettino at the time that didn't go through various aspects. There were questions being raised that sometimes if we had acquired that player at that certain time, it could have steered Tottenham in a different direction. When you hear words like that, and there's other managers that are looking at Tottenham, again, I think managers will be very, very fearful of coming in right now in terms of what they're going to be getting themselves into. We've heard reports that Julian Nagelsmann, there's a stumbling block there because he would ultimately like to know who the director of football is going to be before he wants to advance talks with Spurs. How do you see this managerial adventure playing out this time around, if I can call it that?
I think I'll say similar to what I said to you about Conte. I think it doesn't matter who the manager is if the board are not going to give them the tools to succeed. So I think if you're going to get in a manager, you need to back their style of play, buy the players, have a recruitment strategy that is going to buy the players that is going to fit their style. So if you're not going to have any of that, then just forget the whole conversation in general on who your director of football is going to be and who the manager is going to be. It doesn't matter. If you're going to get a manager in and a director of football that's going to complement that and then have a strategy in place that's going to get the players that's needed to play the style of football they want to play, then you're on to a win. So it really comes down to, are the board going to change tack? Are they going to learn from their mistakes? And are they going to change their ways to help us to succeed? That's my question. So for me, I think I'm not even thinking about who I want to be the next manager, because that doesn't fall into play with me until I know if the board are going to change their tact with things. That's where I stand.
But it's the issue, Matt, isn't it? I mean, we've seen them go for so many different types and caliber of managers, from the win now managers to the project managers to the disciplinarians. You do wonder, what type they'll go for next. There seems to be alludement to the fact that Spurs will now go for more of a project manager. But again, there's got to be an element of patience from fans. But I think Anthony makes a great point there. How can you be patient? How can you show a willingness if you're not sure if whoever they're going to go for is going to be adequately backed? We're hearing reports as we record this show that Spurs have sounded out Ruben Amorim of course, one of our previous opponents that we've seen, of course, in the Champions League. And again, I just wonder whether, whoever that next manager is going to be, are they going to get the time? And even more so, Matt, should Spurs be looking to get a new director of football in before they get the manager in, given that should be the person that should actually be setting the trend as to the, almost you would say, fulfillment and the success of how Spurs should go in these next few years? Because ultimately, when a manager leaves, it's the director of football that should be there, the constant that drives that recruitment, that drives that next manager, that makes sure that you've got a culture, you've got a vision. What do you make on that, Matt?
Yeah, I think in the modern game, you need a director of football, and for the exact reason that you've mentioned, because managerial turnover at the moment is, it's at a rate it's never been. There's 4 teams in the Premier League who've sacked 2 managers this season, and there's 11 teams who don't have the same manager as they did on the 1st of August. You're, no matter what you are, unless you get incredibly lucky with a Klopp or with a Guardiola, or dare I say it, with an Arteta, you're going to have a high managerial turnover. You need that constant, and you need someone who, obviously Prachi didn't work out, but someone who can get a manager with a philosophy. If that doesn't work out, get another manager with the same or similar philosophy. So we're not in a situation like we are now, where we have players that Poch brought in to attack and to press and to be exciting. Then you have players that Jose Mourinho brought in to sit as close to the goal as you possibly can and then kick the ball far for Son. And then Conte, who brought in players who knows what he wanted them to do. We have such that mix and match that if you have that director of football who can keep the same sort of philosophy, the same style of manager time and time again, who knows football better than Daniel Levy knows football, well, then sacking managers every 18 months might not be the worst thing in the world. It's still not the way we need to go for success, but that is really important. And then when you're looking at, like you mentioned, giving the manager time, for me, the next manager that we bring in, I'm not going to have any hope or optimism or anything, no matter who the manager is. But the one thing that could make me think, well, maybe the tide is turning, is if they sign a 4 or 5 year contract. Because like I mentioned earlier with the European competition, we need a hard reset. We need a Poch 2.0 who can come in and he can get rid of this player, strip the squad down to absolutely nothing and start to build it up again in the style that they want and with the players that they want. The worry is Daniel Levy probably won't do that, because if he ends up having to sack that guy in 12 months, it's a massive payout that I don't think he's willing to do. But last week, Ralf Rangnick did an interview with Sky Germany, and he put this incredible option on a silver platter for Daniel Levy, where he said, Julian Nagelsmann should take this job. He needs a director of football. Hint, hint. It's going to cost a lot of money. Bayern need compensation. Nagelsmann needs compensation. Rangnick in the Austrian job, I'm sure there'll have to be some sort of compromise there, or if not a compromise, compensation. But I don't see why that's not something worth doing. The two of them have worked together in the past. They've shown how successful they can be. Rangnick, who I think in English football has a bad reputation because of the way things went at Manchester United. He's not a manager, but he's a damn good director of football. And he's incredible at talent identification. And, I think we saw it in the first couple of games at United. He can instill what he believes into the players extremely quickly. And that's what we need at Tottenham. We need players singing from the same hymn sheet as the manager, as the director of football, as the chief scout, as the assistant manager for the under-16s. We need this. We need the club to be won again. And without a director of football, I don't see how that happens. And I'll be extremely annoyed if Levy doesn't at least try and make that Ralf Rangnick with Nagelsmann as our manager.
Again, coming out of you, again, we've seen again from this interview this week, David Webb suggesting, how involved Daniel was in player acquisition. He did say Daniel likes to have a hands-on role in that when it came to the final phase. He would like to know what's going on. He would like to have his say. And even in terms of player selection based upon talent, he said, he had an opinion on that. I think that sometimes that can cause a conflict of interest. It's not a good thing when you hear that you've got the chairman involved with potential player selection. I mean, that is, again, a worry for anybody coming in and listening to that from the outside. I just feel with Tottenham until they find out and know what they want to be, like I think Matt and Anthoulla have alluded to, we're not going to really know the direction of the club here. I mean, again, we've heard Xabi Alonso being linked. And again, I know these are only names right now. There's nothing concrete, and that's the nature of the rumour mill that we find when there's, a managerial merry-go-round. Does anybody out there, Anne, inspire you, or you see anybody out there that would kind of give you hope that Spurs could bring them in and have a plan moving forward?
No, not unless, as Matty said, if they sign a good enough long-term contract. And I don't think no one excites me. They play good football, but they're going to come here and ruin their rep because we haven't got the players to play their way, because we haven't had a manager come in straight away after Conte to implement his style of play, to get ready for pre-season, as I said when we started talking. Because, we're going to hire a manager end of June, and then we're going on a pre-season tour 2 weeks later, to Asia. So there's no time to implement his style of play. They're going to have to start working. I don't know. It's just so complicated because I know for a fact whoever comes in, they're going to be gone in 2 years. So it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to get excited, and I hate feeling like that. But that's the truth. That's how I personally feel. Because they've got all these players coming back, and it's a big load of. It's just a skip full of load of things in. Do you know what I mean? And they've got to try and take out who they want. It's just going to be an absolute mess, mate. I'm dreading next season already.
And Anthoulla, do you think, again, if the ambition would be if you see a director of football coming first rather than the manager, does that give you some feeling? Obviously, we know Scott Money's there, and again, he was pictured this week with Daniel Levy. Again, I don't know if that was a deliberate ploy of the picture. I mean, again, it's one of those where were they being deliberately pictured upon rumours that they were flying out to Germany? I don't know. I mean, how do you feel Scott Munn will maybe change the game essentially for Tottenham? Do you think that, again, is a step where Daniel is looking to, relinquish some control and allow somebody else to come in and handle the footballing operation?
In terms of Scott Munn, I hope so. But my skepticism makes me think probably not. I think Daniel Levy probably won't relinquish his control. In terms of director of football, I think I completely agree with what Matt said, to be honest. If you have to bring one in that's going to harmonise the whole strategy at the club, they're gonna hire a manager that has a clear style of play, then they're gonna keep the players that fit that, get rid of the ones that don't, buy in the gaps that we need to fill, and there's a lot of gaps, and we have a lot of deadwood in our squad, quite frankly. Most of them are out still on loan as well. So I think there's a lot of work to be done over the summer, a lot of work. And how that's going to be done, I don't know. But and that's probably another reason why I don't want us to finish in Europe, because there is a lot of work to do. We're kind of firefighting at the moment this season, and we really need to regroup over the summer and try and work out how we're going to go forward, because it's just been rubbish after rubbish, different managers chopping and changing how they want to play, and it's a mess. So yeah, I do think we need a director of football in, and we need some power to be relinquished, and having a clear recruitment strategy, football strategy in place to take us forward over the next however many years.
Yeah, look, I do agree with that. Before we look ahead to Palace, Anthony, I just want to ask you, we haven't had a chance to cover it on Last Word on Spurs, and it's great to have you on because of the new fan advisory board which Tottenham Hotspur have launched. I thought the timing of it was very, very interesting, of course, upon Ryan Mason being appointed the acting Tottenham Hotspur head coach. That's now been used twice by Tottenham in terms of the acting head coach. I have to say, look, where we are right now, Spurs obviously have launched this new fan advisory board in an attempt, you would say, to encourage fan engagement and ensure there is a wide representation for supporters. I mean, I think it's fair to say that the relationship between the club and the supporters is not at its best right now, and fans have been left frustrated by poor results and performances from the team. And look, and it's been perceived it's a lack of ambition and investment from the club's board. Give me your thoughts, if you can, Anthoulla, on the fan advisory board, what you feel it's going to do for the football club, and ultimately, really, if you genuinely feel fans are going to have a voice in this process.
Yeah, so the fan advisory board has kind of been a thing that we've been working on for the last 18 months. It came out of the fan-led review that happened after the whole ESL debacle, where it came out that they said that that clubs need to have a better fan engagement with their fans, and actually quite a lot of clubs have already set up their advisory boards. So there's been a lot of sort of back and forth with the club for the last 18 months to get that constitution in place for the FAB. I think the FAB is brilliant. I think it's a positive step forward for fan engagement because they're obliged to take on fan advice and fan opinion. One of the points that they cover in that is priorities and plans, which can include our strategies, essentially. So they have to listen to that. They meet 4 times a year. Yes, that's right. Two of the places are for the Supporters Trust. That's true. And there's 10 places up to grab. Some of them are you can apply for. So there's a season ticket position, a members position, an overseas supporters club position, and a domestic supporters position as well. I encourage people to apply if they want to get involved. I think it is a really positive step forward. They do have to listen. Whether they take on everything you say, that's up to them, but it really gives the fans a voice. So I would encourage people to apply, and I'm hoping that it's a positive step forward in terms of trying to get our points across more so in the boardroom.
I think the one question that's kind of coming out from a lot of people already just on here is, are they ultimately going to see when we say obviously it's obviously a positive step forward by the club, are they going to really see a change in tact of the board? Is it going to be really a change in voice there? Is the ultimate question, or is this almost again a ploy to please the fans that they're opening up this avenue in which, let's be honest about it, right now, then there's much good faith as much as they can, given the nature of how poor the season has been yet again.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think whatever the club's motivations are, the club's motivations, I think it's up to us as fans to really take this opportunity and put our voices in front of them, because with the trust, they don't actually have to speak to us. We literally bang on the door to get them to speak to us. They're not obliged to. With this, they are obliged to listen to fans, and I think that's a key step forward. It's one of the newest things in terms of fan engagement for them to have to listen to that board. So I think it's what we make of it as well. I think you can go in there and be skeptical about it, but at the end of the day, that's there's no point then, really, is there? So we need to sort of see this as a positive and try and think about how we can use that FAB as an influence from fans.
Listen, we shall see, Anthoulla. Thank you so much for bringing us up to date on that. What we are going to do, we are going to go for our final break of this show. Taking us that break, you're going to hear from D from the Back of the Nest podcast, a Crystal Palace podcast, as we look ahead to Palace to come. Matt, let's steer the show back over to you for this final part. Crystal Palace to come on Saturday as we count down the games, the minutes, the seconds of this season. What a season it's been. It's been fair to Palace. They've been involved in a big few scorelines themselves recently. They got a 4-3 win over West Ham last Saturday. They scored actually 5 earlier in April against Leeds, winning 5-1. And I think, Palace will come to Tottenham. I think they're 39 points now. I arguably say they need a point to be safe for sure, but they're playing and probably can come with more of an expansive brand of football. How do you see this one playing out for you, Matt?
Do we have to?
I feel that's how the players feel.
Yeah. I think we're at that stage of the season where playing a team in mid-table, nothing to fight for, is extremely dangerous. There's, I think, the kind of hope that they can come and not have anything to play for and not really care what happens. But there's also the fear that they come and they have nothing to play for, so they express themselves, so they have a little bit of fun. And that seems to be what Palace have been doing since Roy Hodgson came in. He's just tweaked that attack a little bit and played players in their actual positions. CC Patrick Vieira, and it's working really well. Like you said, they're scoring goals, they're winning games, and they've got themselves out of any sort of danger. And they're obviously going to look at Tottenham. We've conceded 11, 12, 13 goals in the last week. They're going to be confident that they can come and they can get a few in the score sheet. And I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing another high scoring game. I look. I just hope, like I said earlier, about the kind of phases we saw in the Liverpool game, that we just play good football. We played the Tottenham way. We press because we showed how effective that was. We actually try keep possession. We try bring the game to Crystal Palace. It's the worst thing that we could possibly do, to sit back and let Palace control a game at the Tottenham Stadium, like we've done against so many teams this season, and looked absolutely useless. We can't afford to do that. But it's I think, like every Tottenham game that's remaining this season, all four of them, who knows? We could win 4-0. They could win 4-0. It could be 0-0. It could be 4-4. I don't think anyone really knows. But one thing for sure is that it can't be as painful as what Sunday was. So, hey, it's progress, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll keep the faith. I know Tom Brooks is very kindly sending a number of messages, Tom. Hopefully, like I say, we're going to keep the faith ahead of the weekend. Big game for Tottenham, of course. Depending on how you see it in terms of European football and coming over to you, because, again, that is still to play for here for Tottenham, as much as for some it's not going to be a necessity or an importance. How do you see Spurs approaching Palace? As we've said, Palace really can come into this game with a bit more of a freedom than what they've had to be, really, since Hodgson's taken over. Do you see Spurs putting a performance at home, given the last couple of games?
I could see him trying to fight. I think we'll probably go 1-0 down because they've got the pace of Zaha, Eze and Elise. I think Zaha will get a penalty in the first sort of 20 to 25 minutes. I'm being honest. Zaha takes it. I don't know how many goals he's scored this season, but he'll score against us. We go 1-0 down. Fans will get on the backs. Draw 1-1. And then I think we might edge it 2-1. I think. My heart is completely different to my head. But that's the truth. I just think there's nothing else to play for now.
Have you not seen a general... I mean, I know we obviously lost the game against
Liverpool. I know we're joking about it, Rick, but it's the truth.
No. I mean... of course. But obviously with that second half performance from United and Mason, do you not feel that we will see a bit more of a front foot Tottenham against Palace? Or
I hope so, Rick. I really hope so. I've been told that, Mason, outclassed Ten Hag and Klopp, but we drew one and lost one. So how's that outclassing? For me, I want to see us on the front foot. I want to see us go at them. It's one of our only last games of the season at home. So do it for the fans that have travelled or go into the game. And then, listen, of course I want us to win, but I just think we will go 1-0 down because we're so easy to play against, so open. Just mistake FC, innit?
What do you think for you, Anthony? What's the most important thing you want to see from this Spurs side at the weekend? I mean, is it now just a case of playing for a bit of pride? I mean, I think it's fair to say that as fans, we've had a really difficult season. Even if down the road don't win the league, when you see how together they are as a group and the way in which they have really come together and united, what for them was a broken fan base. You look at Tottenham right now, it's a real painful period for us. What's the most important thing you do want to see from Tottenham on Saturday against Palace?
I think the most important thing I want to see is some fight, and I want to see them go forward. I want to see them press. I don't want to see any more stupid, sloppy mistakes at the back. That's probably asking a bit too much from them, especially when we don't really have a midfield. So yeah, I'm probably asking for a bit too much there, but hopefully. I don't know which way it's going to go. I can't give you a scoreline. I'm really sorry. I do want to ask Anthony, though, who's giving away our penalty?
I think it'll be a corner. I think it'll be a corner coming in, and it'll be a handball. There, I said it.
Who's handballing it?
What's that?
Who's handballing it?
Who's handballing it? It will come off Forster, hit Dyer's elbow, and then we'll get a penalty. And it'll be one of them stupid penalties that shouldn't be given, but will get given against us.
If this comes true. Oh.
If this comes true, you need to pick my lottery numbers.
Gareth. Gareth is saying I'm having a laugh, Gareth. If people know me, I always predict the other scorers for the other teams. I'm not doom and gloom. I'm just saying it's the truth. We've been playing terrible for the last 3 games. I'm not going to sit here and paint the fact that we've been amazing. And I'm not having the fact that Mason has outclassed Ten Hag and Klopp. I'm not having it. I'm not having it at all. So
I think
for
if
me,
we come out on the front foot, I think we'll score a few and it'll be game over. I think if we start slow and are sloppy, I think they could easily roll us over. So it depends which Tottenham come out and how we start. In my opinion,
needs to go 4-2-3-1. Done. That's my take on it. But he won't. He'll go 3-4-3.
Do you wonder, though, Anne? I mean, does the lineup a lot kind of suggest how? I mean, or do you not even the lineup now? Does not change your view on how that for you at all? The lineup's the lineup.
It's mistake FC, brother. You know, we shipped in 6. Hold on, 5, 7, 5, 6. How many goals you shipped in? 8, 9 in the last
12.
3 games in the first
12.
15 minutes.
12.
15 minutes of games.
Oh, 15 is 8.
12.
9.
I mean, I don't
Nine.
Wish I was be really good
Nine.
mathematicians here. Yeah, no, it is. But again, that is the massive.
so I don't know. I'm trying to think.
That is the massive concern, Matt, coming around to you. The alarming amount of goals that we're conceding. This is the thing, you know. If we want to play a brand of football that is front foot, it is hard to do that when you see the gaping holes at the back and players that just at the moment don't feel they want to even defend. Again, I just wonder with Palace what we'll see in terms of a lineup. I think it's going to massively change. Do you see many changes to that lineup, Matt, at all for you?
I think he's going to start in a 3-5-2, and I'll be happy with that. You know, it could be Decky as a third midfielder, like it was against Liverpool for part of that game. And look, in kind of the theme of the night, trying to take positives from what is a far from positive situation. You know, we conceded 5 to Newcastle in the first 21 minutes, tweaked the formation, things improved. We conceded 3 against Liverpool, tweaked the formation, things improved. So again, in this part of the season, like I was saying, when for me the season is over, finding what works best for us, finding what absolutely doesn't work is something that we can take forward into next season. You know, we don't want to see the starts to games that we're having, but at least we're learning exactly what we need to avoid doing. But it's not just tactical. The reasons that we're conceding, I think it's purely a mental thing. And for me, I don't understand why we've seen so many Tottenham teams over the years who have no fight and who have no mentality. And every time they go to Liverpool, they concede 5. Every time they go to Chelsea, they concede 6. This, whatever. I've never seen a Tottenham team that only has fight when we're 3 or 4 goals down. And it was like it for exactly. It was like that for so much in the early part of the season as well, especially after we came back from the World Cup. You know, how many times were a second half FC where we go 2-0 down and we don't lose the game. It's just so strange that that's the moment that things turn around for us. And imagine if we had that fight from the first minute of many of our games this season. Imagine from the first minute against Liverpool, first minute against United, came from 2-0 down at Brentford. If we had it from the first minute of that, like straight away, that's 7 extra points that we'd have, and we're right in the race for top 4. You know, these things really, really add up at the end of the season, and it's, you know, again, it's not a tactical thing. It's only to a certain extent a personnel thing. But like I was saying with the winners we brought in the past, they just seem to get infected, is the word I'll use, by the mentality that's there. There needs to be wholesale changes within the culture of this football team, and that's a lot more easier said than done. But yeah, look, let's just take, like I said, the positives that we can. Let's go 3-5-2 and just have a bit of fun.
Yeah, Matt, give us your prediction. What are you going to go for, bud?
I'll go. I mean, I might as well predict a victory because it's.
I mean, this is Crystal Palace at home. No disrespect to Crystal Palace. I mean, It's mad that we've been having these conversations, isn't it, like this?
Really?
Yeah.
This is Tottenham Hotspur at home.
He has a great point. I'm gonna go 3-2 win, because I think we'll get forward well, but I also know who we're playing at the back.
Okay,
right, Matt. Thank you so much for that. And let's go around to you. What are you going to go for?
Well, I think I said it before. I think we'll ledge it 2-1. But
okay.
It'll be, yeah. 2-1.
I was just saying if you're going to be convicted, we're going to have some conviction behind the last one. You actually are definitely saying 2-1, right?
Yeah, 2-1. I can't bet against us.
No,
I do love a moan.
I know we do. I know you do. Anthony's come around to you. What are you going to go for you?
I think we're going to edge it 2-1 as well. That's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to score first, and I think then we'll come back. That's my
interesting.
Opinion.
Okay, well, listen, we shall wait to see what happens. And thank you so much, my friend. It's been an absolute pleasure having you back on.
Lovely to be here, Rick. Love being on the show. Thanks, Matty. Thanks, Anthoulla. And good luck with everything, people. Absolutely.
Anthoulla, love to have you back on Last Word on Spurs. Of course, you are part of the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. We are due a good catch-up with those guys. Probably will be over the course of the summer. I don't know if you want to give a reminder as to how, if people wish to go ahead and obviously be part of the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, how they want to do that.
Yep, so you can sign up on our website, which is www.thstofficial.com. We're also holding a consultation process on the 9th next week for the FAB. If you want to know more information about it, please join us. So, yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Like I say, again, I think we're just on that, Anthoulla, again, just to make that point with the fan advisory board, is those that actually, want to know more about it. This, again, is a great opportunity to do that because, again, there's a lot of skepticism around it, as you've said. But ultimately, I think we've got to say that the proof is only going to be in the pudding as such, as to when that does actually happen in terms of knowing how much actual overall influence, direction and control there is going to be for fans on there. But again, I think, like you said, I would encourage every single fan that does want to have a voice and does want to apply for that to most certainly do so. It's a great opportunity to, like I say, hopefully have your voice heard. But the reality is, guys, as I've said, I know as much about it really as anybody. I think that's not much, to be honest with you. The proof will be when ultimately that person is there to see what is happening and if there's any influence. So we shall see. Matty, thank you so much, mate. I know it's been another crazy up and down season of Last Word on Spurs. But as I said to you before we started, we've got the summer transfer shows to come, which I'm sure are always a good time to see who Spurs ultimately aren't going to get, Matt.
Yeah, I can't wait to do tactical analyses of players that end up playing with Bayern Munich next season. It's always fun, but absolute pleasure, Anthony. Always a great laugh on with you. Antoulla, a pleasure to meet you and learn about the advisory board. And Ricky, always great to be on here. And I'll be honest, it's good to be back in the company of Spurs fans. For those who don't know, I was smack bang in the middle of the COP on Sunday, which was one of the loneliest experiences of my life. So I'm glad to be chatting with Spurs fans again.
To be fair, Matt, you did warn me even before, and it could get quite rough in there in terms of, I think you knew what was coming. I mean, the timing of it, you can't, but horrendous. But bless you for that. Guys, thank you so much from the wonderful Antony Costa, from the brilliant Anthoulla, and the wonderful Matty Hayes. We've been the Last Word on Spurs. We are back with you on Saturday night for instant reaction to Tottenham Hotspur up against Crystal Palace. But from all of us here, please, as always, guys, keep safe, keep well, have a lovely weekend. Spurs can't ruin it until Saturday, of course. And as always, come on, you Spurs.